Radio station 2KO has been taking part in the Christmas appeal for nearly 11 years. Items such as food and toys are left at either the Commonwealth Bank or the City Mission each year. Today, the station's morning announcer, Jeff J, and promotions manager, Rick Poynton, presented the mission with donations from their appeal, which closed today. Boxes of toys and food covered the mission hall from one end to the other as workers packed the items into boxes for distribution, which will begin on Monday. Over 270 families, more than last year, will be helped this Christmas through the efforts of 2KO, the Commonwealth Bank, churches, private donations and the mission. However, the appeal is not over. Mission Assistant Superintendent Graham Gordon says they're still appealing to the generosity of the public for more badly needed donations.
Because of the unemployment situation or single parents, that there's just that need in Newcastle, and we're able to fulfil that need. I think they'd have a pretty bleak Christmas. If I can just quote one case of a lady up in Maitland, and Youth and Community said if it wasn't for us helping them, they just wouldn't have a Christmas at all.
The meeting of ETU delegates decided last night to direct its industrial action at the man they say is denying their traditional half-day off, SCC Chairman John Joblin. He justified his action, saying they already get 2 additional days holiday over Christmas. But the workers see the action as inconsistent, because in his capacity as Muswellbrook Shire President, John Joblin has given council employees that half-day concession. The meeting decided on 2 measures of industrial action. Firstly, they've called on members of the Muswellbrook depot not to supply labour to any work within Muswellbrook Shire outside the normal working hours for the Christmas New Year period. The second measure, and the harshest, is a total ban on servicing John Joblin's residents for an indefinite period. The delegates say residents outside Muswellbrook Shire will not be affected by the action.
The towering structure of the floating dock provided plenty of interest for representatives from the Type 2000 group, a consortium led by West German submarine builders HDW. Also there was a representative of the West German sub-designer IKL, consortium financer Ferrostyle and the Australian partner Eglo Engineering. State Dockyard Manager and head of the New South Wales Sub-Task Force Jim Kelly was told by the consortium that it has reduced its list of possible construction sites to Perth, Adelaide, Geelong, Newcastle and Western Port in Victoria. The Task 2000 group has also created a short list of 15 possible major subcontractors and 30 minor contractors. Ginninan and Carrington are on the list of majors, and other local companies may be in the running for subcontracts, although no one is saying just yet. Presuming the consortium wins the Navy contract over the other tenderer Kockums of Sweden, Newcastle stands a very good chance of getting some of the work, regardless of where the final assembly takes place. Eglo's John White says a company like Ginninan is in a relatively good position. It could be a long time before the final decisions are made about the point of assembly and subcontracting. Apparently the subcontract prices being tendered by each state are extremely competitive, and it may be late next year before Newcastle knows whether its prices are competitive enough.
The Port Stephens Shire Council, and especially Shire President Roy Taylor and Shire Clerk John Walsh, came under fire over their handling of the Salamander project in the recent local government inspectors report. The report's major conclusions were that council was guilty of gross mismanagement and as a result are in serious financial trouble. At a special meeting of council last night, a preliminary report was presented by auditors Coopers and Lybrand. The auditor's report did not back up the local government inspectors, but rather was critical of their assessment of the council's financial status. According to the auditors, the inspectors' only criterion was the working funds balance. They say that this is not sufficient to provide an overall picture of financial position. In their report, they assessed the total funds, and from this concluded that council's liquidity is tight, but the overall funds are in good shape. On the charge of gross mismanagement, the auditors say council could not have done too much wrong to be in the shape they're currently in.
Well, the auditor's report shows that the council is not in a serious financial position, as intimated by the local government inspector's report. I think the main factor is that it's proven that at the end of 1984, council had working funds of over $4 million, compared to in 1980 when the figure was something like $2 million. So, in effect, the council is much better off than it was in that position. I think the thing that hasn't been taken into the light in the local government inspector's report is the fact that I think they've looked generally at liquidity from that point of view, from the point of view of actual cash and general funds. But in effect, it hasn't been taken into account the fact that we've developed land. The rate figure will be increased by the maximum of 8%, because I feel that no council can operate on a lower rate increase than 8%. It's the statutory figure that's set at the present time, and certainly most councils, with, well, I say very few exceptions, can operate on an income of less than the increase of 8%. Our rate itself, if we increase by 8%, it will only give us funding to something like 40% of the actual costs of maintaining the Shire, and in that cost of maintaining the Shire, it's certainly not the way that we would want to do it. It's an area that we've said, all right, we can do it for that particular figure. We would love to do it much bigger and better, but obviously because of the impost on the ratepayers, that we just don't want to do it that way. So facilities may suffer, but in turn we don't want to increase it by more than the 8%. If
The inquiry will be conducted independently and will look at legislative and operational frameworks of the four major county councils, Sydney, Prospect, Illawarra and Shortland. The terms of reference for the inquiry are extremely broad and give virtually no indication as to what changes may result. A spokesman for the minister said today that no one will know what will happen until mid-March. He did say that the state government is trying to equalise electricity prices throughout the state. Industry sources say that one way to equalise prices is to redraft the county council boundaries so that each authority serves approximately the same number of people. Operating costs for each county council are then much the same, making it easier to keep prices on par. There is now some speculation that the Shortland County Council will take over a large part of the Sydney area. No one from the Shortland County Council was available for comment today.
From last night's meeting, it appears Elcom favours Foybrook as the next site in the Hunter to accommodate a power station, its proximity to coal being the factor that sets it aside from other earmarked sites. Elcom's manager of development, Garth Coulter, told last night's meeting that Foybrook will be built in due course, when the state's power demands warrant it and when environmental studies are satisfied. It will be similar to Liddell Power Station, with a cooling pond rather than with cooling stacks such as those at Bayswater. It will tie up a site of 5,000 hectares and 14 landholders will be affected. Elcom is currently into a 2-year investigation of the site and hopes to enter negotiations with landholders in the near future. Landholders spokesman David Casbin says they remain totally against the project and their main concerns are pollution and that they'll receive adequate compensation. The power station buildings will be in Singleton Shire, while the cooling pond will be in both Muswellbrook and Singleton Shires.
Just after 7 o'clock this morning, on this gentle rise on the Pacific Highway, 3 kilometres south of the small town of Nadiak, a head-on collision claimed the lives of 4 people.
What really happened isn't yet certain, but Constable Brian Baker of Nabiac Police says it appears the driver of a car towing a caravan fell asleep.
There was a vehicle travelling north on the highway towing a caravan, and it's come into a collision head-on with a smaller vehicle travelling south on the highway.
And were the people killed instantly?
The two people in the smaller vehicle, two ladies, were killed instantly, and the driver of the other vehicle was killed instantly.
And what about the fourth person?
She was removed from the vehicle at the scene, and she was treated by a passing doctor and by ambulance officers, but unfortunately she also passed away at the scene.
And she was the wife of the driver of the caravan car, was she? Were heading north for a holiday with their family. Their van was laden with Christmas presents for their children. The horrific collision completely blocked the highway for more than 1 hour, as rescuers worked in vain to save the passenger's life and then to allow the wreckage to be cleared from the road.
The foundry has been a feature of the engineering concern for the past 66 years. Some 15 years ago, at the height of operations, the foundry generated enough work for 130 employees. That number had dwindled to 13 when the decision was made to close it down. There's a lot of nostalgia associated with the closure of the foundry. One of the men who retired today has worked here for the past 38 years. Yet according to the superintendent, John Govard, the closure was inevitable.
Mainly due to the lack of orders and participation with other foundries. A lot of foundries have been closing through the importation of castings and lack of orders, mainly.
What was the main work that was done here?
The main work done over the last years was probably for the Electricity Commission. We've just completed an order of 70 mill heads of some 16.4 tonnes each for the power stations in New South Wales, and grinding rolls for the power stations in New South Wales.
You're sad to see the place close?
Very, very sad. I'd have liked to have seen my time out here.
Ken Delforce's Crossroads is a black horse, an eye-catcher, and he goes as good as he looks.
Well, I guess you'd agree with the ratings that he's equal favourite with Sea Road and Chanticleer for tomorrow's big race?
Yes, I think he's entitled to be, Lee. His last 4 runs, he's had 3 wins and 2 being at Randwick. He's got good form for the race.
His last win in the Winfield Classic at Gosford was a really good win. You'd be happy with that?
Yeah, pretty impressed with it, Lee. He carried the weight and he was a fairly effortless win. Yeah.
Well, you say you're confident. You must be confident to have gone to the trouble of getting Brent Thompson, one of the world's leading jockeys, up to ride him. That is a sign of confidence.
Yeah, that's right, Lee. Yeah, I'm sure, with a rider of his capabilities, gives you a much better chance of winning. But I think from the 6th barrier, he's going to have the run of the race, what he should have, and a bit of luck and run he should be able to beat.
But Crossroads, the top weight, Crossroads is far too good and wins.
The other Newcastle horse will be at a longer price. It's the Max Lees trained Vain Fury.
Max, is the distance the problem as far as you're concerned with the metric mile at Randwick?
Yes, it is really, because the horse has only won up to 1400, and the 1600 there's a hard 1600, and it's probably, you might just find him out. He's won over 100,000, he's won 18 races, and he's a very honest horse, and even though he's a 6-year-old entire now, he's still racing well.
What about the Newmarket here in May? I know that's a while back, but you quineled them that day. That must have been an exciting day for him. He ran particularly well that day, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Well, that was on a heavy track, and he ran the 1400 out that day pretty well. So if he can just hang on that last bit, he's got some hope in the race.
But it's a Max Lees, Quinella, and Vain Fury too good. Vain Fury a length and a half on Satin Sand, 4 lengths to Eastern Bay. Flying Nugget.
so that we get a water curtain between the fire and that, keep it cool. They're also going to, I think,
Whoa, whoa!